Reverend Julian Kyula is a distinguished pastor and entrepreneur with a remarkable international reputation. As the founder of the Mode Group, a FinTech company operating in over 26 countries across Africa, Asia, and the Middle East, Julian has demonstrated his prowess in business leadership. He also played a pivotal role as the founder and chairman of Beulah City, negotiating a landmark agreement with the government of Kenya and UNOPS to deliver 100,000 affordable homes in Kenya. Julian's achievements include being named the 2015 CNBC East Africa Entrepreneur of the Year, a 2012 IBM Global Entrepreneur, and a two-time Top 40 Under 40 Kenyan Entrepreneur. He has been featured in prestigious publications like Forbes, Bloomberg International, and the New York Times, and has spoken at the Global Entrepreneurship Summit alongside President Barack Obama. Additionally, Julian is the senior pastor of the Purpose Center Church in Nairobi. Help me welcome Reverend Julian Kyula.
I've built companies from scratch. Even as late as when I was here for Wolfbeck, I went back to Kenya and started another one. I can tell you a lot about building from scratch. But I also want to deal with a few fundamental things because I'm realizing that this is something we have to understand. So passion deals with the intense, strong feeling about a person or a thing. And I couldn't help but hear that from all the speakers today. Regarding what they do, passion is key. Money is a great thing. Money does answer a lot of things. But entrepreneurship, I heard someone say this once in a London conversation about entrepreneurship, is putting your face out every day for people to slap. That's what it feels like sometimes. So if you're going to get into entrepreneurship, there are a few things that I think are very important to have, and some are covered in my presentation. But in these few minutes we have, I think for all of us who've come to speak to you, the key thing is for us to give you a very small taste of the context of this gathering, which is building from scratch. But at the same time, I must ask pertinent questions as we go. I remember my parents telling me they went to school without shoes. And as I was listening to Madame Funke speaking, she says she's constantly evolving. I heard it in Mr. Mai's conversation, the choice between career versus entrepreneurship. Questions, deep questions. Listening to Joe talking about what he had to do in Dubai, and even just now explaining to me that it's a challenge in Nigeria to necessarily get visas for Dubai at the moment. There are 4 things I want to make sure you catch. If you're going to start anything, these 4 things are crucial. It doesn't matter if you're in tech, fashion, hospitality, events, manufacturing. There are 4 solutions to wicked problems. And those solutions to wicked problems are born by passion. Passion takes 4 things on the designer. It takes empathy, intuition, it takes imagination, and it takes idealism. These are actually things that are in God's design on anything he does. These 4 things are key. Again, I'm not going to make assumptions. Everybody here is starting up. Some of you are probably on your 10th company. Some of you are probably very successful, and some of you are just kicking off. But I believe we must trust God for a revolution that will take place in the arena of business. Why did I give the story about our parents and going to school without shoes? Because we are not. So I also wonder, has starting businesses evolved? I don't know about Nigeria. In my country, Kenya, there are too many training programs. In fact, we're tired. I mean, every week, people are being trained on how. So you build this thing, you build a great business, you build a great company, as you heard. I remember even in the previous business I built, I had offices here in Nigeria and Abuja. I had a lovely team working for me here. We were in 28 markets. I think some of you still know that business in Airtel and Glo called Borrow Me Credit. That was my business. And you may see the phone company on the front end, but the back end, it was a complete technical and finance solution. So I used to stand on a place like this, and while talking, I'm just making money. It's a beautiful business. Why would I disrupt myself? Why would I sell such a business? I had 300 million customers across the world. I had people in Indonesia. It didn't matter what time it was. When I go to sleep, the system was working. I chose to disrupt myself, sell that business, and start another one because I saw something. Listen, you have to understand how to deal with finance. You have to understand how to deal with success. It's not just starting from scratch. Sometimes the end of a thing is better than the beginning. So I had to think thoroughly about how do I disrupt myself, because I could see disruption coming. I could see it coming. And I started looking at how, again, I've studied a bit of Nigeria. One of the things you have going for you is that you do have a very wealthy nation. I must tell you that, very wealthy nation. You also have pockets of capital here that you can take advantage of. In most of our countries, we have to deal with international funding. So I looked at how we were looking at finance, how we were looking at the evolution, what happens if you have to raise $100 million. So you start with $20,000, you start with $200, but over time it grows. But because of the speed of this generation, I found out that a lot of us are taking wrong capital. Found out that a lot of us are taking wrong money for our businesses. So as we evolve across East Africa, across different parts of the world, I started thinking about capital, where are we going to go? So I've broken my conversation into 2 parts. I'm going to come with a second part just now in about 6 minutes for my last 15 minutes. and tell you. So one of the things I think that is killing us in Africa is individualism. And I'm going to deal with that shortly. I think if we can crack individualism in this generation, a lot can change. In my country, communities such as the Somali community, the Ismaili community, we have a community called the Ismaili community. 11,000 of them, they control 12% of our economy. We have the Bahora community, 30,000 people, they own their own cities. I can't understand why a country that is 80% Christian can't seem to get together. So our biggest downfall, I believe, is individualism, even in entrepreneurship. I sat with my Nigerian friend in Kenya. He owns a restaurant. Across from us was another restaurant. So in this mall, there are certain restaurants that are there. And his restaurant, it's a good restaurant. He's a Christian. His wife is Christian. We sat there. But across from us was another restaurant. I don't want to tell you the name for the fact that we're live. And the restaurant was full. On a Tuesday afternoon, completely full. Why? One of those communities I'm telling you about has made a decision that none of their businesses can fail. So why do Christian businesses fail? Why do we hustle so hard? Because everybody's on their own. And I've built enough businesses to realize, yeah, you can get to the top. Yeah, the top is lonely. Yeah, we can go through all the trainings. But ultimately, why are we failing? We're failing because everybody's on their own. I'll cheer you, you start, I wish you well. But there's no communal covenant that I am my brother's keeper. There's no communal covenant that what you begin, if it is a salon, get ready to see all these heads there. Are you understanding me? So, if you look at Dubai, since today we're referring to Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum a lot, let me say what he said. To be creative is to add something new to life as opposed to being a passive part of it. So entrepreneurship is great. We must start. But I wonder, to my friend, Madame Funke, today I've met someone called Funke. Usually in my country, it's all we hear is that clip, Funke, but I'm glad to finally meet someone. I'm sorry. As I listen to Mr. Mai, as I listen to my brother Joe, could it be that maybe our style of entrepreneurship was our parents' style? And could it be that a generation is rising that could change how that works? I really don't think I'll take you through my, can you see, I can show you, if you can show my presentation, I really had a smart presentation. I don't know if they're showing it. You can see things that I put in there for you. Just let it stay there for a minute. Let them just absorb. I had something, okay? But I feel like going a different, I really had something. See, that looks smart, right? So you believe I prepared for you and I was not going to waste your time. But I really want to deal with this one, our bias. And I think the greatest challenge I've had in disrupting myself is that I've had to learn, unlearn, and relearn. And I was hearing about Diageo and the opportunities, just having to completely disrupt yourself as an entrepreneur in an extremely fast-moving world requires a different kind of thinking. And I think what we have to do is to press strategically. Because two assets you have in life, time and energy, right? I mean, these master classes, one of the things we'll discuss with Pastor Pojo is we need 4 hours with you. All we can give you today is a drop of our lives and experiences. But it's not just pressing. It's pressing toward the mark. So in experimenting in entrepreneurship is I have to get it right. So it means I don't want to waste 20 years. Now listen, this is important. For anyone who's here who's doing business, I think they'll agree with me. To build a great business, if you're going to reach a point and say it has succeeded, you need a minimum of 7 to 10 years. That's the truth. Please, Mark Zuckerberg, notwithstanding, it takes you 7 to 10 years to build a good business. It also takes you 7 to 10 years for a business you are really hoping had promised to fail. So for every one of us, you have at least in life, depending on when you started, 2 bullets to try out a business. A good one. I'm not talking about that little experiment you're trying it. No, I'm talking about if it was starting to scale or something was starting to happen and it starts to track, you have 7 to 10 years. If you're lucky to do 2 good businesses, then you have that business begins to do something for you. So you have to ask God for wisdom to press strategically, because it is easy to lose 10 years just like that. And in a generation that's moving so fast, 10 years is a long time to lose something. So we must ask ourselves the question, am I on my own? Can I really pull this off on my own? Which is what happened to me when I came for WOFBEC. I'm going to give you a story. My slides are still going, so just let people see that I prepared for them. Yes, we have to be creative. Yes, we have to be courageous. Yes, I'll do this one day when I come. Yes, you have to have grit. Yes, you have to have focus. Yes, you have to move with speed. I'm telling you all the good things that we tell you at meetings of this kind. Yes, we have to have information assimilation. You can't do it on your own. But I believe we're actually in another dimension. When I was building, this is one of the projects I'm doing in my country. These are 1,070 apartments. This is just one of them. My concept to my team was, if a waiter cannot afford my homes, they're too expensive. So I told them that solutions to wicked problems are born by passion. Why is that important to me? The first job I had in America, I was a waiter. I went through certain experiences that have stayed in my head. I don't think there's any restaurant I go to that a waiter will not remember me because I make it a point to interact with them in a way that is life. So I fought hard. The business model was not making sense to many in the beginning. It took us 7 years to crack it. But solutions to wicked problems are born by passion. So I fought with the banks. I fought with my presidents, both of them. I fought with our parliamentarians. We lobbied hard. We got certain things going, not just on my own, just through the country's bills. We passed bills that started to look at affordable housing. My previous president and now our current president are very passionate about affordable housing. We have bills that changed how our finance bills are looking like as a country. Now it is possible for a first-time homeowner for us to work with banks for a mortgage that will not go beyond 9% on the Kenya shilling. Secondly, it meant that for my one bedrooms, my studios, which are about $23,000, and that's with a lot of engineering in our units. This is project 1, this is project 2, that you can own a home for $150 a month. Solutions. So now you can rent to own my homes and be a homeowner. Where am I going with this? I'm not trying to show you that I can build. I'm tired of having success on my own. So something started to happen. This is EdomX. I told you I was doing Borrow Me Credit. How many of you have ever done Borrow Me Credit here? Okay, good. So I have customers. But I didn't like the fact that, I can't talk too much about it because there's a lot of confidentiality there. But I thought about finance. So my part was to disrupt shelter, to disrupt finance, to disrupt certain things. So I went and looked at my business model for my previous business, and I went ahead and called my business EdomX. My previous business was called Mode. I didn't even have time to change the name, but I wanted to do things upside down. So I simply just reversed the name. So it has nothing to do with the biblical Edomites. It's just EdomX. Because I just said, I want to disrupt myself. Are you understanding me? And I wanted to look at finance differently. So we disrupted finance. And I went back to Kenya. I had to settle back because it takes a lot to disrupt yourself. And we went ahead and began EdomX, which I decided to disrupt it in America and also in Africa to show that it can work in an emerging market and a developed market. And we're able right now. We just started in September last year, but we built the company over the last 3 years, already over 1 million customers. And we are looking at finance with zero interest. Finance at zero interest. So people ask me, how do you make money? Solutions to wicked problems. So what I did is I went ahead and I found people like my friend Joe. I'd go to their restaurants and say, listen, if I have 1 million customers or 5 million customers or 10 million customers, and on the back end, I give them finance to come to your restaurant in Dubai, could you give me a standing discount? And they're happy to give me 10% because guess what I have? I have customers. I worked with the phone companies. I said, what if we could disrupt finance and change the way people look at finance? So I'm able to then use the criteria in the phone company's mobile money to assess the kind of people I can give this credit to. But while doing that, it evolved into something I wasn't expecting. All of a sudden, people like Joe are willing to give me the discount whether I'm giving the person a loan or not. So now I'm able to start thinking about a global brand. And this is 10 times the business I'd built before because I had the courage to disrupt myself. And I'm saying all this to say, then I came to Nigeria for Wolfbeck. While I was doing all this business, my previous business, I was in Qatar with some very lovely, wealthy friends. And we were sitting in a house about this big. And my friend had guests coming in all along, and he was a community leader. And because they own a very large phone company across the world, I was partnering with them. And we sat there, I was their guest. We had appetizer 1, 2, 3, 4. By the time the meal came, it's the first time I've ever seen food carried by 2 men with big trays like that. Anyway, I say that to emphasize a point. And these people sat me down, and I was watching as all these people were coming in. This was, I kid you not, 5 years ago. And at some point at midnight, we started eating at 6 p.m. We were still eating at midnight. At midnight, the shisha had gotten into my head and all that stuff. For those of you who've never smoked shisha, secondhand smoke is dangerous. It's more dangerous than the one that they're inhaling. And I'm not a guy who takes a lot of drugs. I don't take any drugs, period. So there's a story I'd have told you, but my time is really narrowing down. I really want to make this point because this is important. So he's sitting there, and we're now winding down. We're finished. Business deal is done because some of these people, they relate a lot before they do business with you. So I asked him, I said, Sheikh, who are all these people coming into your house? There's been hundreds of people streaming in here from 6 p.m. I've seen them go that direction. Humongous living room he had. And he says to me, oh, those are my people. So I said, what do you mean those are your people? He says, these are my people. They're allowed to come in here. They can come and take a shower. They can eat. They can even take a fresh whatever of clothes, because all their clothes are kind of the same, small, medium, large, and just come and change. And I'm not supposed to ask them who they are. Then he looked at me and says, but you are a priest, no? So I said, yes. Yeah, all this is in the kitab. We learn from Abram. You don't do this in your church? I was agitated. My agitation, the seed of agitation for me started then. I realized, whether it's Qatar, Dubai, one of the things these guys have is community.